Matt Levi Investigates, Women's Court, brought to you in the public interest without commercial interruption by American Savings Bank, serving and uplifting our local communities for 100 years. HGEA, the Hawaii Government Employees Association. Hawaii works best when we do. And by the Ke Kula o Kamehameha.
This is an interesting fact. Hawaii has the highest rate of incarceration of women as a percentage of the total population in any state in America. Of our total prison population, 12% are women. That's the highest of any state in America. So there already you can see there's a problem.
In a downtown Honolulu courtroom, Judge Trish Morikawa is speaking to women who are a step away from prison, with convictions ranging from theft to drug offenses. These women have been handed a final lifeline, probation rather than prison. It is unique, a first of its kind, and not everyone is accepted.
Okay, good morning, Veronica. How's it going?
Going good.
Good, nice to see you. Let me see what I got.
As the judge interacts with each woman, she draws a small piece of paper from a wooden bowl, or umeke.
Oh, this is okay. This is a fun one. This is a fun one. So that's good. This is not a heavy one. Okay. A'a ika hula, vaiho ka hila ika hale. So it says no shame. Okay. When one wants to dance hula, bashfulness should be left at home. Okay. So that was kind of you, your little dance there. You know.
Each piece of paper has an olelo no e ao, a Hawaiian proverb. She uses these from time to time to inspire and encourage the women. Judge Morikawa is herself Native Hawaiian and a graduate of Kamehameha schools.
So it's interesting because people don't realize that I open it and I have to figure out how to connect that to that person and what they told me or what I know about them. Like a lot of times people are ashamed. You know, they're ashamed or they're embarrassed about the things, you know, they don't like do classes or they don't want to admit to things or whatever. But you are not, you know, you're okay. You know, you're not ashamed. You know what you got to do. You're ready to do it.
Being the first that was signed into a women's court, it gives me the incentive to do better, to show the next group how to do it.
Yep, and I remember that when you said, I'm the first one and I'm going to do it and I'm going to show the rest. It's a way to encourage them and to give them, again, another way of giving them a positive motivation and to focus on some of the things that they're doing and to, you know, to highlight it or to kind of bring it full circle.
Women's court for me was hope, is hope. It gave me a second chance at life to help me believe that there is help out there that I didn't know about.
Veronica Hanawahine is a pioneer. She is the first woman to be accepted into women's court.
Like, I can talk to her about what I've been through and be comfortable about it versus to talking to a guy and feel like I'm being judged on speaking how I feel and what I know.
With the help of cultural experts in the community, Women's Court has come to be known as Mohala Wahine, or Blossoming Woman.
They've been 100% part of my recovery since then. They're the reason why I'm still sober. They're the reason why I still choose to do better with my life today. Because they gave me that. They gave me hope.
Though Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders in general are overrepresented in our prison system, it is her understanding of Hawaiian societal values that Judge Morikawa believes will make a difference and resonate with these women.
You know, that cultural portion is a unifying portion, but it's also, you know, something culturally, you know, there's a reason why there's books of Olelo no Eaos. Like, you learn from these things, you know, you look to the past to try to figure out how you can better the future.
Retired First Circuit Chief Judge Mark Browning was instrumental in creating this experimental program.
When I was putting this court together, I had Judge Morikawa in mind. In fact, that was one of the reasons why I decided to go through. I had this idea for a while, but you have to have the right judge. And there was no question in my mind that she was the right judge.
Women's court is a challenge, and critics say our justice system is in many ways out of touch, a relic designed and still mostly run by men.
So candidly, could a man be the presiding judge at women's court?
I don't think so. I think a woman has to do it because you want them to say, I could do that, or I could be that, or I could be better. And it's a little harder for a woman to look at a man and say, I could be that. You know what I mean? It's easier. I think it's more of a goal if you're in women's court to see a woman and say, I can do that. And I'm not saying that they should all be judges or anything like that, but just that they could be successful. They could be more than they are right now.
What makes her special for this particular court is her ability to communicate, her compassion, her empathy, and her willing ability to listen, identify, and support. And she does it in such an enthusiastic, joyful way.
So yeah, I definitely, really encourage them, really try to get them to understand what a great big step they are. And then eventually they get it and and then they're proud of themselves, but they're not so quick to be proud of themselves, which is sad.
The creation of Mohala Wahine brings with it a long overdue realization. The paths that get women into trouble with the law are much different than the circumstances leading men into prison. Women locked up in Hawaii are far more likely than men to have suffered physical and sexual abuse, as well as mental illness and drug use. And fewer women than men are convicted for violent crimes. Former Governor Linda Lingle, along with several other women, founded the Women's Prison Project, which supported the bill for the creation of women's court.
I'm very optimistic that we'll achieve our goals of drastically reducing the population in the women's prison over the next 3 years, and that we will increase the amount of community support for them. To keep one woman in prison for 1 year costs $80,000. We could spend 30 in the community and have a much better outcome and reduce recidivism.
Unlike men, once incarcerated, women often still face primary responsibility for the health and welfare of their children.
They were the custodial parent before they went to prison. Almost no men were custodial parents before they went to prison. So a highly motivating factor for women to get out of prison is that they want to get their children back. That is not a motivator for men to get out of prison.
The existence and necessity of the sisterhood women's court brings to the judicial system was a theme repeated by those we spoke to.
I think there's too many women out there that have been shut down or silenced, and men have a lot to do with that.
Katz Ahana Rose is head counselor at the Sand Island Treatment Center.
And so just in general, they don't feel comfortable saying the truth about themselves. But if they're working with another female, then they know that that person can relate to them, and that's when the truths come out.
The Mohala Wahine section administrator, Sai Aganon, heads a staff of 5, and although male, helped develop the women's court program.
We're here not to traumatize people. That's not what probation is about. We're here with them and a part of their journey to recovery, really.
I really say that my team, the women's court team, the probation officers, the supervisor, Sai, who's in charge of all of them, they really work really hard to make the women that are in the program feel like, that we're 100% behind them, that we're trying to do everything that we can for them.
This is a different kind of probation being selected and agreeing to be part of a women's court. It's sort of like 24/7 intensive supervision and probation to the place and point where you start to progress and are able to find yourself, and this is the participant, find yourself believing in the principles and gaining the trust of the probation officers that are part of this team.
Some of the stories of trauma we have heard was women experiencing trauma as early as their memories could allow them to, since 3 years old throughout their life. And then they get into situations that eventually lead them to being justice involved.
Many times, women are forced into crime and homelessness.
They could be doing it because they have kids, and that's where you start looking at the different pathways that women get involved in the criminal justice system versus men.
To be more specific, domestic violence, child abuse, drugs, alcohol, very unhealthy relationships, and childhoods that you wouldn't wish on anybody.
They might not have had the resources, they might not have had the encouragement, they might not have had the schooling, they might not have had so many other things that everyone else has that you would expect a law-abiding person to live and to lead that type of life.
That is a consistent theme. While no criminal behavior or activity should ever be excused, most women are not incarcerated for major crimes or crimes of violence, and negative associations with men too often are intertwined with women's criminal histories.
And the really sad irony of this, oftentimes, Matt, the woman who goes to prison was really tied up with a guy, and the guy was dealing drugs, and the women get arrested. But because the women really don't know anything about the bigger operation, they're just sitting in the car, or they're waiting, or they drop something off.
For some, acceptance to women's court means a chance to break away, once and for all, from the trauma in the only world they may have ever known.
I always told myself, I'm never gonna do drugs, I'm never gonna smoke, I don't wanna be like my parents. I'm exactly like them. I followed the addiction.
One really big thing is the generational addiction, because it's just part of the family cycle. So the kids get involved. It's the whole family's impacted. When a woman begins to get help, they have a good chance of stopping that cycle in their family with their kids.
When we first met Veronica, she had been sent by Women's Court to live at the Sand Island Treatment Center.
The women in here suffer the same thing as me. We're all alike. Different in ways, but same. We connect together because we've been through same situations, just different scenarios. Some had it worse than others.
Veronica's first arrest was in her mid-30s, but she was involved in petty crimes much of her life. Domestic violence, drug and alcohol use, and sexual abuse were common during her childhood. She started drinking alcohol and stealing cigarettes at 5 years old. She was sexually abused for the first time at 6 years old and began smoking marijuana in the 2nd grade. She was raped by a relative when she was just 13.
The regulars, dysfunction in the family, a lot of fighting, a lot of put-downs, speak unspoken to, planning lies, secrets, drugs, alcohol, and abuse. Just everything, I guess.
I think that she's was just very shut down her whole life. And so now that she's learning that she can say how she really thinks and say how she really feels and feel the feelings and walk through it and still be okay.
Every time when something happened, I spoke on it and I got hit. If I was scared, I got scoldings. I couldn't get mad. I pretty much got nickings for everything, good and bad.
In 2018, when a disagreement with a neighbor escalated, police were called and Veronica was arrested. She was convicted of second-degree assault and placed on 4 years probation. When Mohala Vahini was created, Veronica fit the candidate profile, and she became the first woman accepted into the experimental program.
I was lost. Before women's court picked me up, I was lost. I was confused. I was broken.
Few offenders can stay on a good path without outside help, and the cycles of violence, physical and sexual abuse, drugs, and alcohol continue.
More than 95% of the women are nonviolent. 60% had minor children when they entered, and 85% of the women have suffered childhood trauma, and some all the way up until they went to prison. Sexual trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, neglect, abuse, almost all of them. So these are deep mental health issues.
If women meet the strict acceptance requirements, they are welcomed into the women's court system.
The first thing that we definitely need is the person has to be high risk, high need. So high risk meaning risk of recidivism, and high need meaning need of assistance like substance abuse, housing, homelessness, that type of need of services. So if you're not high risk, high need, then you won't come in. We won't accept you. And then we also have to look at their prior criminal history, things like that. But we do an assessment.
Next, they must get accepted into a treatment facility like Sand Island Treatment Center. It currently has a waiting list to get into one of its 123 residential beds. The center treats clients who are often chronically homeless with mental health and substance abuse issues.
For the 30 years that I've worked here, I've found that 99% of the women have been abused, beaten sexually, emotionally, mentally. 99%. It's very few that doesn't go through it.
Sadly, the numbers of Hawaii women in need of services is difficult to gauge, and most estimates, however large, will never include dreams lost and lives forever changed from promise to tragedy. Some will argue that the women themselves are to blame, but too many are undeniably victims of abuse, now burdened with hidden trauma, their spirit and self-worth destroyed.
That's probably why I do this for a living. I'm gonna get emotional. I know that is when you're in it, it's very hard to imagine that somebody's out there that can help you.
But if there was no women's court, I would probably be back in jail, honestly. Yeah, without them, I wouldn't be my authentic self today. Absolutely, the person that deserves a better life.
Absidi Keawe started getting in trouble in her early teens, mostly stealing from malls, but that soon escalated.
My story is kind of sick. You roll around with the sick long enough, you become sick.
Before long, drugs began to take over her life. She told us a story about smoking crystal meth with a man she didn't know in a West Side Beach Park restroom. She passed out. When she awoke, she told us she was tied up in the trunk of a car. That was the start of 8 months of sex trafficking.
And every day I would have to get walked and shadowed to the shower with a gun to my head, saying, hurry up, go get in the shower. Hurry up, rinse off, because we got to go to the next house. For 8 months.
How did you get out?
I started to do more crime. I started to make myself get noticed out there. In order for me to get out, I had to find a way to get noticed from the cops, from people.
It was convictions for burglary, car theft, and drug charges that finally sent her to women's court. So far, she has made progress.
But when we started to finally open up and everybody started to get deep in sharing their life, events and experiences, we started to look at each other like, wow, this is where I can come.
Once a woman adjusts to the initial demands of women's court, the requirements for completion of the program are tightened. There is individual counseling and group classes with a deep dive into subjects ranging from domestic violence prevention to basic education.
That's one of the things that we try to focus on at some point, getting them into school, getting their GED, getting them to work.
Importantly, there is a running theme. We're not playing a game. Your actions here and on the outside have consequences. We will show you a good path, but it's up to you to take that path and stay on it. When you leave here, take control of your life. Don't let someone else make decisions for you. To move out of a treatment center, the women need to find housing in a clean and sober house, like the Transitional House of New Beginnings in Waianae or Mohala Mai in Macaulay. These traditional homes provide a safe and supportive environment with the goal of leading a clean and sober lifestyle. Finding work is a requirement toward the end of the women's court experience. Getting hired is not easy, especially with a criminal record. At the time of incarceration, many female inmates list welfare payments and other public assistance as their main source of money.
They tend to be great workers because they're extremely grateful to have a job. They try to work really hard, and so, and they all want to work. They don't want to be on assistance once they come into our programs,
To stay in the Mohala Wahine program, women must actively participate in court-ordered treatment programs. They must stay drug and alcohol-free, attend court hearings, meet regularly with a probation officer, and stay out of trouble with the law. Sometimes they backslide. Penalties for breaking rules increase as they advance in the program and may cause them to return to stricter status.
You hope that your path stays straight, right, from the time you start on a path. But sometimes it goes crooked, curvy, you know what I mean? Yeah. But, getting there in the end is all that matters, right? And sometimes those little side trips or those little, bumps, I think they help.
Despite a successful start to her time with Women's Court, Veronica broke a rule at the Sand Island Treatment Center. It was serious enough to get her moved to another treatment facility.
As much as I was concerned when I first heard about it, I swear within a week she was back on track. So there wasn't a lot of time for me to be alarmed because she just, again, was very motivated and was not going to fail.
When we talked to Veronica again, she was back on track and had phased up to living at the clean and sober transitional house.
It's still a struggle every day for me, but the struggle is not as bad. I don't worry as much. Problems I used to have doesn't even bother me anymore.
I think that gives me hope for the program to continue. I actually have a lot of faith in her. She's really putting her first foot forward and putting effort into this, and this takes effort.
It's incredibly intense in terms of the supervision and the requirements that you have to meet each and every day as a member of that court.
Veronica seems to be on track again, but of course, time will tell. She is working and living with her brother.
She rose to the occasion. She said from the beginning that she wanted to, be part of our program. She wanted to succeed. She wanted to, be a women's court graduate.
Absidy is currently living in a clean and sober house and working full-time.
Where I'm at today, I'm grateful. I can wake up and say that, oh, I have work today. Being able to know that I have something to do when I wake up, I did that. I chose to live this life the way I live it today.
There are those referred to the program who are veterans of the criminal justice system. But for many young women new to the system, in Women's Court they have found a sisterhood that puts them on a path to the goal of permanently staying productive and out of trouble.
women need that support of women. And you can see it when they come to court. They're all supporting each other, they all know each other, and I think it really helps them to move forward with having that women's support.
When we work together as women of women's court, something beautiful happens in that moment. You know, hope, dreams, passions, goals, opportunities, life. Something better happens for us at that moment.
There is no set timetable for completion of the program. Administrators believe it will take those accepted 2 years to graduate from Mohala Vahine. 35 women are now in the program, with at least 4 set to graduate this summer.
There's a lot of women that are incarcerated that hopefully we could keep out of incarceration if we can get them into women's court. Really, I wish that more people would understand that you shouldn't give up on people. If you have a roof over your head, you have a job that can give you money so you can eat, you have the treatment that you're missing, so that you don't get back into the lifestyle that you're at. There's no way else but to go forward.
Again, while criminal activity should never be excused or tolerated, we must also realize that there are innocent victims of criminal behavior. Many times the young who suffer physical and sexual abuse through no fault of their own, often in the home. And that abuse, mostly by men against women, can explain how those young girls and women made bad choices, putting them behind bars. Women's court will not work for everyone. No judicial or social program ever does. But it offers a fresh approach, woman to woman, where these victims and survivors are given hope that they can break the cycle of abuse and criminal activity. We saw in this unique experiment a sisterhood who found they share not only the same experience, but also the same heart. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matt Levi. Good night.
I'm just glad that the fears I have today became my strength because of women's court. They taught me that whatever you fear can be something you can overcome. It's how you face it, how you react to it, and what you're gonna respond with it,
I don't know, I just see a lot of difference in myself that I could have never believed it to be today. Like I said, I never seen a future in my life. I just saw the next day, or I just saw right now. And right now was my past.
Matt Levi Investigates, Women's Court, brought to you in the public interest by American Savings Bank, serving and uplifting our local communities for 100 years. HGEA, the Hawaii Government Employees Association. Hawaii works best when we do. And by the Ke Kula o Kamehameha.